Okay, so I'm here today to talk to you about a book that came into my life recently, completely randomly, that feels like it's changed my life in a pretty significant way, but I haven't talked to anyone about it, and I get the feeling it's one of these books that I'm gonna have a hard time articulating just what makes it so special. So if you could just bear with me for the next few minutes, I would really appreciate it because I think this book is important. I'm almost positive you've never heard of it before, but I hope you take the time to listen to me because I think this is a really good one. The book is called The Power of Ritual. It's by Casper Kuile, a Harvard Divinity School fellow and co-host of the fantastic podcast Harry Potter and the Sacred Text. And the book is meant to explore how we can enrich our lives by transforming common everyday practices into sacred rituals that help heal what Casper Kuile calls our crisis of isolation and our struggle to find purpose. So right away, I just want to say, if your back went up a little bit when I said that, or your eyes rolled when I spoke of creating ritual out of everyday activity, just hang with me for a second and let me talk about this book for a little bit before you go and write it off. We are in the midst of a real paradigm shift of how our communities work. Just consider what was lost when those religious, spiritual communities stopped being the center of our communities. As Kuile outlines at one point in this book, religious communities were responsible for offering connection, conducting spiritual practices, ritualizing life moments, fostering healing, connecting to lineage, inspiring morality, housing transcendent experiences, marking holidays, supporting family, serving the needy, supporting justice, and through art, song, text, and speech, telling and retelling a common story that binds it all together. If you go further back, these institutions even involved healthcare and education. And at this point in our lives, all of these things, which used to come in one tight-knit experience, have become unbundled. And we've lost that roadmap to greater meaning through community. We think we have community online. We think we have community in our real lives, but it's not the same in any way for most of us. Some people maintain this kind of community, and if you have that kind of connection, whether it's spiritual or whether it's not spiritual, this book probably isn't for you. But for me, for someone who's really secular, who's lost those connections, it's important, and I'll tell you why. Casper's book shows us how to build our own everyday secular rituals. And when I say ritual, what I mean is a patterned, repeatable way to reinforce a kind of moral ethic through an activity, whether that's compassion or gratitude or awe or empathy or ecstasy. In his book, In Over Our Heads, Harvard development psychologist Dr. Robert Kegan wrote, "The mental burden of modern life may be nothing less than the extraordinary cultural demand that each person in adulthood create internally an order of consciousness comparable to that which ordinarily be found at the level of a community's level of intelligence." Or if you want to put that more simply, it is put on all of us these days to create an entire network of support within our own brain alone. Human beings were never designed to do this. For tens of thousands of years, we lived communally in a way that we just do not anymore. And so the book tries to take a look at that through the following. Eating and exercising that help us connect not just with ourselves, but with others. Reimagining pilgrimage as a way to connect back to the natural world. Reframing prayer as a time of reflection. And the most important thing to me, and I think as well to you, and it's what I'm going to be talking about for the rest of this video, I think, reading sacredly and reintroducing the concept of the Sabbath. Again, not in a religious way, but a secular version of a Sabbath. And I'm really excited to talk to you because I think it's a really transformative idea and I'm really, really into it. The thing that Casper Kuile hammers home again and again and again about ritual is that it involves three things. For something to be a ritual, that has to be intention, there has to be attention, and there has to be repetition. So unless something satisfies all three of these things, it's not really a ritual. So if you take your dog out for a walk twice a day, that ticks off the repetition part of it. But if you're not going at that action with intention or, more importantly, attention. What are you really getting out of it? I've become obsessed with this idea of creating a Sabbath after reading this book. The idea of a Sabbath is creating a set amount of time where you give yourself a set of restrictions, what you can and what you can't do. Sabbath is about creating space to connect with ourselves, about creating much needed soul time. So common uses of a Sabbath in a secular way are creating a tech Sabbath, a Sabbath for solo time, or even a Sabbath for playtime and creativity. So what Casper to Kuile does is every week after he gets home from work on Friday, he puts his phone down, actually puts his phone away, and he basically has a complete tech embargo for the next 24 hours. It's something you hear about all the time. It's in a lot of self-help books. You'll see it on Twitter and all these things about distancing ourselves from our social media and from our phones and all these things. But again, it's about attacking that issue with intention and attention and repetition. It's doing this with the right frame of mind and doing it over and over and over again and creating this space to have meaning in your life. It's not just to avoid checking Twitter for 24 hours. It's about why you're doing this. What are you losing by living your life that way? And what are you going to try to gain by pushing that away a little bit? And it's important to note that this isn't a time to focus on completing some tasks. It's not about preparing yourself for a busy week to come. It's a time that you set aside to revel and delight in the idea of just being. As Casper says in the book, it's a day just for the sake of life. In other words, your Sabbath isn't for the sake of your weekdays. It's not to prepare you for the stress of your week. Your weekdays are for the sake of your Sabbath. That is meant to get you to this one day where you just recharge yourself and you just distance yourself from all that garbage in your life and reconnect with who you really are, not who the world is trying to make you into. There's this amazing Thomas Merton quote that I want to read to you right now. It's, "We do not live more fully merely by doing more, seeing more, tasting more, and experiencing more than we have done before. On the contrary, some of us need to discover that we will not be able to live more fully until we have the courage to do and see and taste and experience much less than usual." Merton urges us to find our real selves and know ourselves as we already are. The idea of this Sabbath is to give us perspective. You can sing or paint or write or even sleep with a certain intention of surrender. Ultimately, it's about befriending your solitude. The West African writer and teacher Malidoma Patrice Somé explains that before beginning a ritual, you own the journey. You are in control. But once the ritual begins, the journey owns you. I think she's arguing that the lack of ritual in the West now is at least partly as a result of how we have this overwhelming need to have control in our lives right now, which is just antithetical to ritual. And I think it makes us really stressed. I think it makes us lose focus. I think it makes us focus on the wrong things. And this book just kind of gave me permission to live life in a different way, to explore some things that society doesn't want to encourage in you. It's all about the rat race for people and getting more and doing more. And as Merton said, tasting more and experiencing more. It's that trap of Instagram where no one could just climb a mountain without telling everyone. It's all about these external forces all the time. And it's not about doing anything for its own sake. It's not about doing anything for what it's doing for you. We need to really reinforce that among each other and really help each other out. And I talked about so little of this book, but there's so much more that I also want you to read and learn about and experience. And it's very simple, super easy to read. I also listened to it on audiobook. The audiobook is fantastic. So if you're an audio person, it's really great. It's only 6.5 hours, maybe not even that. I just can't speak highly enough about this book. I think it would be great for book clubs. I think it would be great just for individuals to read it to see if there's any changes they want to make in their life. This feels this was such a pleasant surprise. It just randomly came into my life while I was browsing audiobooks, and I just can't speak highly enough about it. It just, yeah, it feels transformative for me in so many ways, and I hope at least a few of you will check it out. As always, thank you so much for watching and listening to me. My name is Rick, and I will see you guys in a couple days. Bye.